Postnatal abortion, prostitution, body parts, well, it's got to be a moral maze, and it is. And as always, there's so much to discuss. Campaign Life's Matt Wojciechowski explains all, or tries to do so. It's interesting how so many people from Campaign Life have surnames difficult to pronounce. But that's okay.
Well, it's one of the hiring...
it shows the multicultural diversity and brilliance of your organisation. You know, this one, I mean, even the introduction, postnatal abortion, isn't that infanticide?
Yeah, it is. And this is actually a very, very scary case. It's this professor of philosophy at Queen's University, Udo Schuklenk.
Yeah, whatever.
I'm mispronouncing the name, but I don't really care. He is also an euthanasia promoter.
Mm-hmm.
And he came out saying that he would promote the notion of parents killing off their newborn babies if they deemed that their quality of life isn't up to par with their own.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a form of infanticide. I mean, he also links this to abortion, that if fetuses don't have any rights, then, you know, children who are born, you know, should also fall into that same category.
What about professors of philosophy? Are we allowed to do the same thing?
I wouldn't do that, but hey, it's a good argument.
Is he trying to make a provocative philosophical point?
I think he's you know, referring to what's happening in the Netherlands, where they just recently passed laws where you're allowed to euthanize children. So he's referring to that. I mean, this guy is a euthanasia lobbyist. So I don't really know why this is news. I mean, I do know because euthanasia is a very hot topic, and they're trying to push an agenda. But
there's an interesting point there, isn't it? Because if you believe that a person has the right to kill a child, to take the life of an unborn child just before that child comes from the womb, then it's something consistent to say a few seconds later, a minute, 2 minutes later, all those rights to kill that child disappear. And if there is a profound disability with the child, I think many people, you know, I wish I was wrong, but I think many people would say, well, maybe it would be the kindest thing to allow the child.
Yeah, I would agree, actually, because the people who have the mentality that it's okay to kill babies before they're born, for whatever reason, for an example, if they have a disability, then most of these people would be okay with killing them after birth. And these are the same people who are okay with killing people who are, you know, living with disabilities in the later stages of their lives.
Yeah.
So it all kind of falls into the same group of people who, unfortunately, don't see the inherent dignity of every single human being, no matter how old they are, no matter at what stage of development they are, their inabilities, their abilities, it doesn't matter to these people. I think it's unfortunate to see this happen, but it is a debate that's happening in Canada now, and it will only continue. So,
in a way, I welcome this. I think it does rather crystallize the argument, because quite a few people who are sort of passively pro-choice might say to themselves, really? Is that where it's going?
Yeah, and it's interesting that this professor is also one of those people who completely rejects the whole notion of the slippery slope theory when it comes to euthanasia. And meanwhile, he's referring to what's happening in the Netherlands, where there is a clear slippery slope, where they legalized euthanasia, and now they legalized euthanasia of people with disabilities, and now children with disabilities, and it continues, so on and so on.
I'm surprised that this academic, and you know, Queen's has a good philosophy department. I'm sure this person is reputable. I have no doubt of that. But there is a slippery slope. I mean, that's hard to deny. Even those who support euthanasia, the ones I know, will acknowledge we have to be very, very careful, they would say, because there have been some terrible abuses, and there are people who have an ideology more than a sense of compassion. But
sure. I mean, we live in a country that is modern, that is progressive, it's intellectual, and yet we're having this discussion about killing babies just because of their disabilities. Okay. It's outrageous.
Different issue, in a way, a very different issue. The prostitution law, Ontario Premier Kathleen Wynne has said we should review the prostitution law. Look, it's one of those absolutes, I suppose. You will always have people who are willing to sell their bodies for sex, and you'll always have people, invariably women, and always have people, invariably men, who are willing to pay for those bodies. I suppose it's how we regulate, how we control, how we limit to the best of our ability.
Definitely. I do believe that the law is a teacher, and the law should teach that it is wrong to use people for your own sexual needs. It is wrong to purchase human beings, their bodies.
Let me ask you, if, putting aside economic circumstance, if a woman said, I want to do this is the way I want to make money, I don't mind it, and a man is willing to pay, who are you to say no?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of... Most of the government of the Conservative government has been claiming that they're putting this law into effect because they want to protect the victims. You know, that's their main focus. And I would say the majority of women and men who are in the sex trade would be victimized. However, like you said, there is a group of people who clearly, you know, they want to do it because they're a college girl, they want to get money to pay for tuition. This happens. I've had friends who have done this. And, you know, where do we put those people? And I mean, I disagree with the whole industry altogether, but it is definitely interesting that Kathleen Wynne is trying to bring this into the Ontario perspective, where she's asking the Attorney General to review what's happening.
Well, so the Nordic model, the approach being that the woman, the prostitute, is always the victim, if you like, and must be protected, and the John, the man, and generally men, who buy their services, are those who have to face the consequences and the law. I mean, I don't know if that's completely fair. I think in some ways we overreact to this issue. I'm a realist. I do believe we're never going to completely stop it. I remember going to Amsterdam years ago, completely legalized, and all it meant was there was an illegal alternative just outside of the city.
That's right.
I mean, there'll always be people who say, I don't want to pay that level of taxation. I don't want to be inspected by a government bureaucrat. I want to do what I want to do. And frankly, there were more perverse forms of sex that were required, and so there were other people who will provide that.
I do believe, though, that there has to be a law about this, like there is. It was put into effect on Saturday. Even though it's going to happen regardless, there should be a law. And, you know, Kathleen Wynne says that we need to protect women who are vulnerable. Well, I think the way to protect vulnerable women, in this case, is to empower them, give them options, opportunity to have a good job, a good education, so that they don't have to make these choices.
Oh, I agree completely. Look, the vast majority of women, if they had a decent alternative to prostitution, would not seek prostitution. And those coming in from other countries are victimized and so on. There's a wide context to this. Interesting stuff. Very different issues, but both profoundly moral. Thank you very much.